TPS for Haiti continues. Now what? There's so much to talk about. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about the case that was decided last week that saves TPS for Haiti, what comes next, what this means for TPS holders as far as their status, their work permits, their ability to renew their driver's licenses, what this might mean for other countries who have TPS who are waiting the fate of their own designations, and also what effect, if any, last year's Supreme Court ruling that allowed the Trump administration to terminate TPS for Venezuela, how, if at all, that will impact TPS holders for Haiti as this case continues to move on in the process. I'm Bianca Jordan. I'm an immigration attorney who has successfully helped people go from TPS to green card for about 15 years now, and I share a lot of resources for immigrants on how to do that. I will link everything in the show notes below. I also have notes for this video because there's just so much to talk about. So I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. And so the TLDR is that in the Miot v. Noem case, the judge in that case ruled that the Trump administration cannot terminate TPS for Haiti at this time because it violated the Administrative Procedures Act as it relates to terminating TPS for any country. And there is a specific process that you're supposed to go through when terminating TPS for a particular country. One of those steps is consulting with other agencies to do country conditions reports to see if the country is even in a position to be able to take back their citizens, even though those citizens may decide that they don't want to return to their home country because they don't necessarily have to if they can go somewhere else. But part of that analysis before you terminate TPS for a country is to determine the conditions in that country. And so TPS for Haiti was initially granted because of the earthquake that happened in Haiti in 2010. You could argue that things have improved from that point. However, when TPS for Haiti was redesignated in 2021, it was redesignated because of the assassination of Jovenel Moise, their president, as well as an uptick in gang activity. So we've now divorced TPS from Haiti. The original designation, which was the earthquake, we've kind of divorced it from that to now it's because of the gang activity that was happening around 2021 when the Biden administration redesignated TPS for Haiti. So that's an important distinction. But nonetheless, you're supposed to go through that process. And from what we can tell, this administration did not do that. Since the first Trump administration, that administration has tried to terminate TPS for Haiti as well as a whole bunch of other countries. And because of litigation, their designations were able to continue. With this administration, we knew that the Trump administration would again try to terminate TPS for Haiti as well as other countries for the simple fact that almost immediately upon taking office, there was an executive order that called for reevaluating and assessing TPS because this administration believes that the program has been abused. And so we already knew that TPS for Haiti and other countries would be in danger. At the start of this administration, there were 17 countries that had TPS. Most of them, when their time has come up, they've been terminated. So we already know that this administration plans to terminate TPS for Haiti as well as the other countries. The difference, though, is that this administration, when it comes to terminating TPS for Haiti, is not really following the rules. And it does appear that they're doing so just out of racism and animosity. We saw this during the Trump administration's second, term campaign. We also see this in some of the tweets that the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Noem, has been including on social media, which have been included in this case as well. And so, because of that, the judge felt that TPS for Haiti should continue because the process is not being followed. Additionally, she assessed the harm that would happen to not only to the plaintiffs, but also the public interest as a whole. TPS holders contribute billions of dollars to the economy. They are really involved in our healthcare system here. And so to terminate TPS for Haiti specifically would have such a detrimental toll to the economy and the healthcare system as a whole. And so it is in the public interest to continue allowing Haitians to keep their TPS status. The government has apparently already filed a notice of appeal. They did so on February 5th. So we already know that they are going to appeal this decision. Um, can it go all the way to the Supreme Court? Possibly, right? There is a chance that they can decide to bring this to the Supreme Court. And a lot of people are, well, first, before it even gets there, it depends on what the Court of Appeal says. But let's say that the Court of Appeal sides with the plaintiffs and the Department of Homeland Security wants to appeal it again. It can bring it up to the Supreme Court as an emergency, like for an emergency hearing for emergency relief. And that's important to note because if the Supreme Court decides to hear this based on emergency relief, it's not that they're agreeing to hear the merits of the case. So they're not going to decide whether the Trump administration was lawful in its decision to terminate TPS for Haiti. They're only going to determine whether the government can move forward with the termination for TPS for Haiti while the rest of the lawsuit plays out. And that's exactly pretty much what happened with the Venezuela case. And so a lot of people are like, well, if this ends up going to the Supreme Court now is like, heavily stacked against, common sense seemingly sometimes. And so, of course, the Haitians are going to lose at the Supreme Court. Not necessarily, right? And so the difference between, the Venezuela case and this case possibly going up to the Supreme Court. So, first of all, the Supreme Court did allow the Trump administration to terminate TPS for Venezuela temporarily while the rest of the case was being litigated. It's a different set of facts. It's a different country. It's a different procedural order. So there's a lot of different things. So if the Miot v. Noem case does make it up to the Supreme Court is going to have to assess this with new eyes. It cannot just take what it did in the Venezuela case and automatically apply it to the Haitian case. So there is a chance that if this case were to make it to the Supreme Court, that this could, have a different outcome. Okay, so now that I've talked about all the possible court stuff, let's talk about what this actually means for Haitians with TPS. So, first of all, it means that your TPS did not end on February 3rd, 2026. It means that you still have TPS, you still have your work permit, which will be auto extended, and you are able to apply for or renew your driver's license. But that is based on where you live. I will be including a resource that will kind of help you navigate that. But just know that just because you have TPS still does not mean that automatically you'll be able to renew your driver's license. It very much depends on what's happening at the state, that you live in. So if you have a work permit that has category 812 or C19, your work permit has been auto extended. Beyond that, what does this case possibly mean for other people who either just lost their TPS status because your TPS was just terminated, or if you're from a country, for example, El Salvador, who has a TPS termination coming up? What does this case, possibly do about your situation? So the importance of the Miot v. Noem case, and this is something that I've said since before, like when I started to report on this case. This case I always said would impact other countries more so, in the sense that it's really challenging that you can't just terminate TPS for a country because you don't like the immigrants that come from that country. You really do have to, show your work. You really have to do the assessment, consult with, the country experts. I used to be a part of a group that lobbied, for lack of a better, more accurate term, on behalf of countries to kind of see, like, well, this country should have TPS or this country should have TPS. And the last time I was really actively involved in that group, they were trying to get TPS for Cameroon, and now TPS, now Cameroon has TPS, and so they really do consult with experts that are from those countries to see what's really happening in those countries, to see if it rises to the level of the United States designating TPS for that country. And so there is a big level, or a strong level of work that needs to go both for designating a country for TPS as well as terminating it. You can't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to give TPS to this country. Similarly, you can't wake up one day and say, I'm going to take TPS away from this country for whatever reason because I don't like them, so on and so forth. And so this case really tightens that standard. And so the government, when it comes to terminating TPS for other countries, is really going to have to show that they did the work to determine whether or not it warranted that. And for the countries that have lost their TPS, people from those countries could possibly sue and say, well, actually, we don't think that the Trump administration really, followed the rules and did what it was supposed to do when it comes to terminating TPS for our country. We see a little bit of this with the Venezuela case, the Ninth Circuit case, the case out of California. We saw that because the Trump administration tried to terminate TPS for Venezuela early, just like it did for Haiti. And the court ultimately was like, you can't do that, because you violated the APA. And so our laws and rules exist for specifically this reason. And so the TLDR in all of this is that TPS holders for Haiti are safe for now. Your work permit is still valid. You may or may not be able to renew your driver's license depending on where you live. But my resource will hopefully help you determine whether or not you can do that. But if you have TPS, whether it's for Haiti, Syria, any of these other countries, you really do need to consider what your options are to switch into a more permanent status like a green card. Because at the end of the day, it is called temporary protected status. Granted, a lot of people have this status and have had this status for decades through no fault of their own, but the intent was always to be a temporary haven. It was never meant to be permanent, even though unfortunately that has been what ended up happening for a lot of countries. And so, if you are in a position where you can adjust your status to get a green card, you absolutely need to be doing so. I understand there's immigration bans and pauses, and I just recorded a video that kind of explains to you what the difference is and what you need to know as it relates to your case and filing it and all that stuff. But I speak to somebody almost every week who is eligible for a green card, could have probably been a citizen by now, and one of the reasons why they did not apply for a green card is not because they weren't eligible, but because, well, I have TPS, so I'll just hold on to that. I'm not going to make things more complicated. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Well, you're at the bridge now. And so if you're in a position where you are eligible to adjust your status through a family member, you absolutely need to do so. If you are someone who has a previous deportation order or you're currently in removal proceedings, you need to speak with an immigration attorney as soon as possible, because a lot of things as it relates to getting a green card when you are in court changed just last week. And when it comes to immigration, really treat your case as if time is of the essence, because it is. Because immigration laws and policies are being decided every day. The Board of Immigration Appeals, or the BIA, is deciding cases every day that will impact how we can process your cases. And so the sooner you're able to apply for something, the better off you will be. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe to the channel so that you get more updates on what's happening in the world of immigration, as well as tips that can help you with your case. Share this video with anybody you know who has TPS for Haiti and other countries, because what I discussed here is not just specific to TPS for Haiti. It can possibly have other impacts to other people who have TPS from different countries as well. And if you are interested in working with me, if you would like my assistance with your green card journey, I will drop all that information in the show notes so that you can connect with me. Thanks for watching.